Okay. This is classmates' work, so of course we need to be respectful. You guys are pretty good at that. I'm going to gloss right over it. Mainly, what we're interested in today, two things. One, we're talking about introductions, because that's what this is. And also, argument. And that last one is pretty vague, but it'll become clear once we start talking about it. What I want you to do, first I guess we should review 4 parts of an introduction. Do you remember what they are, any of them? What do you start with? Huh?
Hook, question mark.
A hook. It's optional. You don't have to have it, but you can. Good. What's the second part? Introduce the text. Very good. Third part.
Roadmap, dog.
Roadmap, comma, dog is where you break down your ideas into smaller, more digestible chunks. Kind of leads to your thesis, which you guys know all about because that's in your heart. All right. To the best of your ability, just for a couple minutes, I sent an email. You want to open it. To the best of your ability, I want you to investigate this paragraph. Okay. Do you see the parts? Most of them are there. Do you see the parts? Where are they? And then, of course, how good a job do we do? How might we improve upon it? Do you see any glaring issues? This sort of thing. Take a minute. We'll talk about it. All right. To begin with, just because it's going to bug me, let's go ahead and do one of these. Have we talked about this? You italicized longer words. I gave you that spiel. Okay. Well, just a reminder, if you forgot all of that, which happens, remember at this point, all you need to know, italicize the name of the movie. Sweet. All right. Parts of an introduction. Do we have a hook? No. No. And that's okay. It's optional. So cool. Introduce the text. Do we do it?
Yep.
Yes.
We do. All right. Where's that?
First one.
Which is a great place for it to be. Roadmap. Do we have one?
Sorry.
We do. We'll talk about it. What is there? Starts right about there, yeah? Okay. Thesis. Do we have one? I'm not saying it's perfect, but like, do we have one? Like a swing at a thesis? Yeah. Probably here-ish. And again, it's a PDF, so we gotta fix that. Yeah, something like that. All right. Now, we'll start at the tops, because it'll be easier, to be honest with you. The movie, The Social Dilemma, so far so good, demonstrates the effects of social media on our current generation. That is not wrong. It does do that. However, when it comes to a summary, again, the way I kind of describe it to you guys is, if you were describing this movie to a buddy, hey, what are you guys working on in class? We watched the movie. What's it about? I feel like we could do better, right? How might we? And we can even stay with the spirit of what they have, right? Like, demonstrates the effects of social media on our current generation. In what way, right? How would you try to get more specific? Just a little bit, by the way. Once you've read the sentence, you have it. Stop reading it, because words will invade your head. I'm telling you. How does this movie demonstrate those effects? What does it do with those people? Somebody said something. What?
Negative.
Will your chest, please?
It's negative.
Oh God, I just drug negative out of you. Yeah. Yeah. How does it portray that negativity? Yeah.
It shows the family's kind of evolution through the effects.
You could say downward spiral almost, right? 2 of the kids get arrested by the end. 2 out of 3. That's not good. The other one's crying alone in the bathroom. Like, it's not. Yeah. Let me see. So, movie, The Social Dilemma, details. Oh God, hang on. I don't know what I just did. So look, already this is exactly what we were talking about, right? That current generation business. They're talking about you. They're not talking about me. That's the kids. Are you guys kids? Legally, no, but basically yes. Details, the downward spiral of a traumatized family, resultant, getting fancy, from their overuse of social media. Great. Are there other parts of the movie? Yes. Might we not even talk about them? Possibly. So like strictly speaking, we may not even need to bring up the fact that there are experts in the film. We may, but at this stage I think we're okay. That's a long way of saying this is good. All right. Next bit, longest bit. Roadmap. Some of you seemed on the fence, perhaps, about this. Why was that? What misgivings do you have about this section? Because there's a problem. Yes, ma'am.
Well, when in the introduction, well, I guess the struggle for me is like trying not to. I kind of struggle to jump like right into like evidence, and I don't need to. And it's hard to make a sentence where I feel like I'm not giving too much in the introduction.
I told you last time, don't worry about that. It's not a magic show. It's not your fault. Some dumb motherfucker told you that that's how it works. And I'm using that language on purpose. Jesus Christ. Bore me. I mean it. Risk boring me by giving me information. You could overdo it and we could trim, but the inverse is way worse. Because now I don't know what you're talking about. You see what I'm saying? Don't save it. Don't hold it. But okay, hopefully, we're going to talk a lot about this, so maybe that'll help a little bit. Yeesh. Do you remember who taught you that specifically?
Yeah, it was like, not my 5th grade teacher, but my 6th grade teacher.
Your 2nd grade teacher?
6th grade.
6th grade, okay.
It's been a while.
But like, that's foundational stuff.
But, like,
You just
high
trust
school-
that person.
Yeah, and like through high school is kind of how it was. You just,
Because high school's a joke.
yeah.
High school was hard, bro.
I can't tell you what I did all through high school, because it's not what you're supposed to do. But there's a lot of those things, and I had hope and like all that stuff because high school's a joke. Anyway, yeah, we'll deal with that. Any other misgivings you guys might have about the roadmap? There's to lead you a little bit. There's one real issue with the whole thing, like the tone of the whole thing. Maybe, yeah.
It's all just about one thing.
What is that? I don't know what you mean. No, I mean, what do you? If you could be more specific. What is that one thing? We start there.
It just describes social media as addictive and like a slot machine.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're for sure focused.
And it's not specific enough, I think.
Well, we're definitely missing something. I will say I don't mind how focused it is. And again, bear this in mind, it's 2 to 3 pages. We've talked about this a couple times. That means it's 2 pages. So the 2 pages you write for me, we're talking about maybe 2 body paragraphs, something like that. You don't have a lot of latitude to talk about the whole movie, right? In this particular, maybe they just want to talk about the addictive / gambling sort of aspect to social media. I mean, you could get 2 paragraphs out of that, right? That's okay. There's a bigger problem than all that. I don't mind the tight focus. That's okay. What's the problem here? What are we arguing?
We're arguing the point the movie is making.
Whose argument is that, though?
The movie.
That's the movie's argument, which means we have no argument ourselves. That's a problem. It's one we can fix, but that's a problem. And look, I know I've mentioned this before. I want to underscore it here. This is a real trap when it comes to talking about a documentary specifically, okay? Because they are overt in their arguments. They're not trying to hide it. Like, they want to be upfront about social media is like a slot machine, and that's bad. Like, I think it's Tristan literally says those things, okay? And it's easy for that, because it is an argument, for when you sort of get that down on the page, you're like, I have an argument, awesome, but it's not yours. So here's what we gotta do. First of all, I'm gonna help us a little bit by taking this out. We don't need this. The whole like Facebook is for olds, Instagram is for youngs, that's not helping us. So I would cut that out. Everything else we can work with, okay? For instance, this is the argument part. I know what that is. I don't know what the hell that is. But addictive and attention grabbing. For sure, that's an argument from the film. Do I know specifically what part of the film they're talking about? No. We may or may not provide that information here. But what matters is we're dealing with the argument. We're interested in the fact, and it's a fact, that the film argues this. So my immediate question is, we have to rhetorically analyze that. What does it mean, or how does it register with you that the film makes that argument? Says social media is addictive. Attention grabbing, I almost wonder, because the way the film puts it, I almost wonder if that's not strong enough, right? Like it'll help us here, and we can't know because we're not the student. It'll help us here to think of a specific moment in the film. Can you think of any, and there's a lot, moment in the film where we could think about, like, it is for sure arguing social media is addictive and or attention grabbing? Any moment in the film at all? Yeah.
Whenever they're in that weird little box thing and curating it to the sun's specific lighting, like you see.
You're talking about the algorithm?
Yes.
Yeah. So they have a guy who plays a character who's supposed to like embody the algorithm. Yeah, what about that?
I mean, you have them, like, whenever you're trying to take a break in the algorithm, they know about his life and whatnot, and then they try to send him a notification that gets him back on his.
Oh, and they mull like what to send him.
Yeah.
They have all these statistics and like probabilities. Like this has a likelihood of meh with people like this kid, right? They're trying to push his buttons specifically. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's stay there for a second because we're gonna have to talk about this in the intro. What did that do to you guys? How do you think, for instance, rhetorically speaking, that's appealing to you? Is it a logical appeal? Is it something about credibility? Is it emotional? This idea that this algorithm would behave this way toward you. What does that do to you? What does it make you think about or anything? If we're going to talk about addiction, because they're trying to, I suppose the argument would be make him addicted then, right? How do they go about it? How would you describe the approach the algorithm takes? What words would you use specifically? I can think of a good one.
I think means necessary.
Yeah, kind of Rambo-esque, right? Can we get I just want one word for that. Can we do one word that describes this Rambo mentality when it comes to getting Ben back on his phone, back on, I guess, Instagram since he's young, he's not old.
Crazy.
Huh?
I said crazy.
Crazy. No, crazy would be let's show him poop pictures. Like that's bananas. No. It's aggressive. It's aggressive. Ben hasn't picked up his phone in an hour. Let's get him. That's aggressive. How are we gonna get him? We have data, right? Like that's how it's presented. Data. So, well, again, data kind of sucks all the oxygen out of the argument, but like, what is it really? Like we're tracking you and your life all the time. I don't know if you know this, the apps on your phone, they're like, can we have your location data? And you're like, yeah, fine. That's like, we're gonna track you forever.
Okay, we manage your phone.
Yeah, like if the app is closed, they just track you. They track where you go, what you do all the time. That's how you get ads for shit. They're like, I was just looking at that. It's like, we know.
And it's like, can we have permission to access your photos? Or it's like literally just taking more photos?
Yeah, just stalking you. Yeah. All right. So, what are we gonna say? At one point, the film to portray the right? That's kind of what we're looking at. Okay. So what? Again, and if it helps you take yourself back to that scene for just a moment, any of them, there's a lot of them actually, with the dude from Mad Men. I don't know if you, great show. Anyway, the way they talk about Ben, or how they approach their job with this like weird zeal, like they're really, you guys don't know zeal, do you? You know what that means? Okay. They're all about it. They're really into what they're doing. Anyway, what kind of an appeal is that, do you think? Is it a logical appeal? Is it about credibility? Like, do you find it more credible because it's the dude from Mad Men? That was a joke for me. The answer is no. What kind of an appeal are they making here? Or, another way to think about it, why? Because this is a choice they made. Why would they choose to have this algorithm portrayed by an actor? Couldn't they just talk to more experts about it? Which, I mean, they do as well. But couldn't they just have more of them? Like, show you a computer screen with, like, the Matrix type stuff? Why do they use an actor to do it?
It wouldn't show, if they just explain it, it wouldn't show the gravity of what it really is.
Why do you say that?
Because,
Like, could you, to help you a little bit, could you tie it to the fact that they use an actor a little bit? Like,
yeah, because the actor's gonna dramatize it and definitely make people think it is a much bigger evil, whatever it kind of.
why do you think that is? Yes, ma'am.
Maybe because the actor's like known, so it'll be, I don't wanna say easier for people to believe him, but like, people are, I don't know.
Hey, you take a swing sometimes. It's all good. Well, I mean, again, if it helps, think about it this way. Sometimes it helps me a lot to think about the inverse scenario, okay? And all I mean is, again, they chose to use an actor. Whether or not he's known, they chose a guy, like a human being, to play this algorithm. Do you guys know what an algorithm is?
Yes.
What is it?
It just says, steps.
It's math. It's math. Fucking complicated math, but it's math, okay? That does stuff, in this case, virtually, digitally. Okay. Why, if we're gonna talk about how aggressive it is, would you have a person act that out as opposed to, again, have an expert maybe turn their computer screen around and go, look at all this, and like, you know, what does it offer?
It makes it very easy to just like be the bad guy. Like you can look at them and say that's the bad guy.
Why is that though?
Because it's a person.
Sure, but again, dumb it down for me just a little bit. There's a step we're missing, and you guys are close.
So
Yes.
you like pay attention.
Like personalism.
The emotions in it, we're thinking.
Makes the AI seem like a.
Well, again, because again, go ahead, Austin, number 2.
It's just a lot more interesting for the viewer to, instead of turning around and seeing.
All right, let's push on interesting though. Interesting can mean a lot of things.
Numbers on a screen isn't scary or.
It's not, is it?
It's just because you can't understand how it is bad or whatever. You're just like, oh, it's numbers.
It's like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It could be nefarious in some way, shape, or form, but if you turn that screen around, you break it down for me, it's gonna be completely over my head. You know, it doesn't resonate in the way that a person would, who can communicate those kinds of emotions or the aggressive approach we're talking about. You can't look at numbers and go, that seems intense. Like, it doesn't work that way, right? That's what we need to talk about. Is able to, I don't want to say act out, is able to,
Portray.
have we used that already?
Oh.
Somebody said dramatize earlier. I don't know. Look, edit this later. Is able to dramatize this approach. By the way, with how roadmaps work, do you guys know what that's gonna end up becoming later in our paper?
More like a body paragraph.
It's gonna be a body paragraph. It's gonna be outstanding, right? That's what we're doing. Okay. We have one more point we make, I think, or one more sort of theme or idea we talk about, I guess. And it's in here somewhere. We mentioned it already. What's up? Oh, you guys were talking about
Yeah.
people shit. All right. What are we? What's the other thing we kind of light upon? I love doing this. Do you guys know what light upon even means?
Touch upon.
It's like when a bird lands on a branch. You just light upon. I like giving you guys words. You don't have them. You go through your day saying that's interesting, and it can mean 20 million different things. Use light upon today. You'll confuse somebody. Anyway, we talked about addiction, and we got a scene, and we're gonna get a body paragraph out of it. What's the other thing we mentioned rather than light upon? Oh, fellas. You guys aren't bringing it today. My head is swimming. I'm so stuffy. I can float away at any moment.
What are you asking us?
What are we talking about? We talk about it like in the original draft, which is the lower half of the screen now, okay? We talked about addiction, and we addressed that, or we got way more specific on the top half. We're trying to do it one more time. So there's another thing, other than addiction, that we talk about from the film. What happened?
Validation.
That's not where I was going, but the way we can do that, it's in there for sure. Back there, maybe? Head on the desk, is it you? Okay. Well, you sounded like your head was on the desk. Sure. This whole thing about likes. That immediately makes me think of one scene. I'm not going to give it to you yet because I'm going to see what you guys can do with it. But let's think about that. This idea of validation. This idea, I'll ask you, how do they talk about that when it comes to likes or hearts or whatever the hell the other things do that you guys use? I don't know, retweets, any of that. Yeah.
They talk about like the dopamine hit. I don't know if that.
Oh yeah, we did that in class at one point. We had a really good quotation from, I think it's the lady with the big hair and the glasses.
I think it was that Indian guy.
Oh, it could be.
Yeah, it was the Indian dude.
This is where you would go check, and also you would get the guy's name. Hey, I don't know what you don't know, so just so we're clear, at no point in your paper can you go, the Indian dude says, like you need to get that guy's name, Steve or whatever it is. All right, I know it's not Steve. Yeah, he says the thing about, because we had it on the board at one point, how it's like a dopamine hit. What about that language? The like button, when somebody likes your thing, is like a little dopamine hit. Do you guys remember anything we said about that language he uses? It's a drug. It's a drug, right? And it's weird because it's on a screen and like clearly no one is, right? But he's comparing it to that. Again, and we can actually, because I don't know if you know this, that Indian dude is hella qualified. There's a couple ways we can talk about that moment. And I'm just interested to hear from you guys. How might we talk about the Indian dude, unfortunately, and his excellent quotation about dopamine hits?
Like for this introduction, you mean?
Yeah. Just any old way. I don't care. Go for it. Do you need a moment?
Yeah.
Sweet. What's up?
Okay, we talked about how it's like I don't want to say like an adrenaline rush, but like could you go into why he says like it's like a drug?
It depends. What do you?
Well, I was gonna say like it's kind of, or how she said like validation is kind of like a adrenaline rush, and like they need those likes to feel okay, well, I was trying to go back in a circle and say that again. But they need the likes to feel, I wanna say accepted, or like, I don't know, to feel good about themselves, like they want the likes. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, part of his logic there is when you use drugs, you have to keep using them, right? That's kind of how it works. So that may be why you feel like because it is a circle. Yeah. All right. So look, let's go down that path just a little bit. I kind of want to keep some of their language too. I don't even know. All right. So further, and look, I'm going to put it like this. So you can go back and change it. You can control F, those little symbols, you'll find that, you'll fix his name, right? Indian dude, comma, the former, whatever really impressive thing he was. What? Compares the I've walked myself into a corner linguistically. Like the chemicals firing from your brain, it's getting really stupid, and again, my head is very fuzzy. Really? That's good enough. That's what he does.
Yeah.
That's what he does. And again, the point here is we would talk way more about it. We're gonna talk a little bit more about it here, but way more about it in a body paragraph. All we're doing here, because that is what he does, and that it seems like that's what we're interested in, is the rhetorical effect of that choice. He, in some way, chose to say it. The filmmakers damn sure chose to keep it in. They could have cut it out, right? So what is that? He talks about the dopamine hit. He for sure compares it to drug use and the kind of cycle of addiction, so it kind of ties in really nicely with what we said a moment ago, right? But so what? So what? What's the effect of that? What time is it, by the way? Or you got a notification?
10:05.
Huh?
10:05.
10:05. You're not checking the time.
Hello, Tom.
No.
It's just funny because what we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's a couple paths we could go on here. I'm interested in you guys can see any of them. Yes?
You could talk about how it makes the audience feel when
Sure.
they hear that, how they feel like manipulated as if they're not in control.
Good. Which leads to the viewer. Oh, come on, man, just. Yeah, sure. And we can talk about that. No one likes to be manipulated, or at least not to be conscious of it. Sure. Some of you are looking at your phones right now. Although you may be looking at this, but I don't know. What's one other thing? One other avenue we could go down. We've talked a lot about emotional response, which is completely fair. But especially with this last, I guess, piece of evidence, there's another rhetorical appeal we could bring up. So not take emotions off the table for a second. Now we're thinking about logical argument and or credibility. Can we get to either one of those here?
Probably.
Yeah. We for sure can. I'll let the cat out of the bag. Yes. What a horrible phrase, by the way. Some dude had to have once, right? Anyway. What do you think?
It might be credible if you're getting into like science and shit.
Let's talk about credibility for a second, because it's been a while. We haven't been, we talk a lot about emotions, and there's a lot in this film that concerns you guys directly. So emotions, that's kind of an easy bridge to cross. Like, so we do it a lot. Let's think about credibility for a second. I mentioned this, I think, the very first day of class, and oh yeah, and because you checked my ID, you've seen my ID. The rest of you haven't, so you're trusting that guy a lot. What makes me seem credible as a teacher? I'm up here, I seem loosely comfortable doing it. I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I just sound like I know what I'm talking about. You guys don't know a whole lot about the material we're covering, right? This could all be bullshit. But if I trick you into believing me and I seem credible, this says a lot about society. For sure. That's how we elect presidents. Anyway, so that's how we elect everybody. So if we're thinking about credibility here with the Indian dude, there's a really easy path to thinking about credibility.
I mean, you can talk about what he said is substantial because he knows what he knows. Like,
Because he's-
because of his credibility and
The
position.
former, whatever the
Mhm,
hell.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because again, look, I'll put it this way. The dude, he looks like he lives under a bridge. You know the guy I'm talking about? You know exactly who I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. I think he's actually pretty qualified.
The guy who wrote the book.
But if you had him standing next to the Indian dude, one of them, just given appearance, and that matters to us. We judge people all the time based on their appearance. You could even talk about that potentially. Indian dude is put together. I mean, he's like business casual, I suppose, but so it's not just his career, which is super fucking impressive, but his mode of dress, the way he carries himself, right? All of that makes him seem credible when he makes this point about how social media is a lot like drugs. Because that's kind of a hard sell. Normally I get pushback from you guys in class. Somebody will go, no, we have to have a whole conversation about that. But the fact that he says it matters, right? And all you would do here is talk about why that is. Great. Okay. So at this stage, we have our introduction to the text. We may need to mention experts because we kind of bring them up here, right? Truth be told, we don't mention the family at all, so we may need to change that a good bit. But for our purposes, we're not doing that right now. All right. This was our original thesis. And it's all right, but to the best of your ability, I want you to try to forget it for just a second. Read over this really quick, like our new draft. What are we focused on? Because there's only a couple things. Take a minute. What are the big things we're focused on, do you think, in our new roadmap, I suppose? Go for it.
The addition, the algorithm base.
Marcus dying. Yeah. What else?
drug use or food sex, that's kind of the way.
Yeah, it's a credible, believable, as a result, comparison to drugs, right? Yeah, cool. All right, now, the tricky part. We gotta try to make that a thesis, some kind of a way. This will not always be the case, and this can sometimes be signs of an issue, but I'll tell you now, these work pretty well together, these 2 points, right? Can anyone maybe say the dumb thing and just tell us how? How do these work well together?
Drugs, confiscation.
It's all about drugs, right? Yeah. Sorry. How so? How's it all about drugs? This is obviously about drugs, but then this one,
I mean, addiction is a word that
good.
you associate with drugs.
What's the weird difference here? The thing you wouldn't normally associate with drugs? Math.
You're unaware of it.
That too. Good. Okay. So we could mention that. That's not bad, right? It's like surreptitious, right? All right. So this is a fun game we can play. Context clues. What's that mean?
Huge, large,
A lot.
immense.
Yeah. The film spends a lot of time, an inordinate amount of time, doing what?
For comparing the systems and algorithms used for these algorithms.
Undergirding. Anybody know what that means?
It's like the basal structure or something.
Yeah, a girder, like this building's made out of them. We're saying holding up social media, these systems. Good. The film spends a lot of time comparing the systems underneath social media to drug use.
Drug use.
To be a little more specific, right? Period. Thesis statement, not a sentence. This, all right, so to be clear with what we have right now, all we've done, this first sentence, we did our absolute best to try to tie these together, okay? I think we mostly have. But, again, is this an argument? No. The film does do that. So then this next sentence needs to be us. Okay. So what? The fact, and it is a fact, pretty much, that the film does this. How are we going to talk about that rhetorically? What does that do? That argument, the way that it's posed, all of that. How does it affect you, I suppose? Do you think? We talked about this. We just got to bring it back.
It's supposed to make you concerned.
Let's push on that a little bit. What do you mean? Or why? Go ahead.
Could
And then
we say that in this case, the correlation between the two does equal causation? And that's what scares us?
okay. What do you mean by that?
Because I know we wrote down in the past, like, suggesting that correlation might not equal causation.
It's an old maxim. Yeah.
But in this case, it, like, does, like, correlation between, like, drugs can cause, like, addiction.
get really in the linguistic weeds here, I don't know that this is strictly a correlation. I mean, he's correlating them in the way that that's a synonym for comparison. But I don't know that we could call it a correlation as such.
We're correlating and finding one that causes the other.
Yeah, but again, it's not tracking a trajectory in the way that a correlation usually would. I'm going to veto that language. The idea is good, but I think we need to say it a different way. Does that make sense? Okay. Austin, what'd you have?
I don't know, I kinda lost my thought.
Damn. All right. Well, I'm gonna try to now just bring back what you said. Like you said, correlation in this case does seem to be a causation, or does seem to indicate
Yeah.
causation. Why is that? Do you think? Like, if you could explain, it might help us if you explain that a little bit.
Like, okay, so we're like comparing in our thesis paper, we're
Yeah.
putting together like what addiction and the drug talk, like what they
Yeah.
have in common, I guess.
Okay.
And we can go on and talk about like,
All right, I'm gonna stop you real quick.
I don't-
No, the reason you're having trouble, you guys will all do this at various points. You're doing what I call narrating your process. And here's what that means. Rather than dive into how your thoughts work or try to explain your thought process, you started telling me about what that process should look like. Does that make sense? You all do that. You'll say things like, I'll get homework where you'll say things like, and then I will think about a scene in the film and discuss rhetorical appeals. And I'm like, that's the fucking prompt, bro. Like so you want to try to avoid that. Instead, to the best of your ability, do what you're talking about. Does that make sense? You got to train yourself to do that. Okay? So I'll say again, because I think you're actually onto something. Maybe I'll phrase it this way. Given, and it's an old maxim, I don't remember who said it, but he's very dead, that correlation does not equal causation, right? Like, that's kind of just an accepted thing that we have. But I agree, in this case, you kind of, the argument they're making, right, makes sense. Like, it's super believable, right? Why is that? That's what we got to try to put language to. Why is it so believable? Why do you buy it? If you do, you may not, but in this case, it sounds like we're buying. So, yeah.
Well, we probably buy it because of the credibility, but also we can see it, like you can think about your own life, and then you can look around and what surrounds you, you can see it happening on a day-to-day basis. Like you can see yourself looking at your phone for hours.
In a lot of cases, it seems super applicable, right? Like, yeah, okay, cool. So, well, actually, we'll start there. All this, we haven't used it yet, so let's break it out. Resonates. Do you guys know what resonates means?
Vibrates on a similar frequency.
Very good.
I know.
So the sound of this argument, the tone it makes, if you want to be musical, makes a similar tone to your lived experience. It resonates with you, right? All this resonates with the typical viewer's lived experience. It makes sense because it lines up with what you see when you look at the world. That's worth pointing out. Film doubles down on this conclusion. The film doubles down on this conclusion by incorporating the perspectives of completely qualified individuals. Indian dude knows his shit. That's the two pillars in our argument, right? Number one, all this addiction talk, drug use, blah, blah, blah. Even if, because I know there's some of you out there not saying anything, it's okay. All this, you're like, this is bullshit. This is not me. Okay. But you've seen people, you went to school with somebody who was way too into Snapchat or whatever, right? So it resonates with your life. It resonates with your life. And then the second thing is also a really smart, really experienced guy makes this point too. And what are the chances that that really smart, really experienced guy is wrong and you're right if you don't buy it, right? What's up? That's our thesis. Our argument starts there, right? But I gave us one sentence to kind of set it up. You may or may not need that. That's an introduction. Questions about any of that? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
Are you gonna like add this to like the paragraph?
Well, I mean, I wrote it. So no.
No, I'm just asking like, you can add all this, like, it doesn't matter how long the paragraph is.
Oh, okay. Well, it looks longer, first of all, because it's on the board. I mean, this would probably be 3-ish lines or so. So it wouldn't be that long. It really wouldn't. The rule of thumb I was always given is an introduction max. It can be like 20% of your paper. And if this paper is like 2+ pages, you got to think an introduction probably shouldn't hit the bottom of that first page, right? Does that answer your question? Other questions? Yes.
So the film spins blah 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 is the thesis you said, and you put it above that paragraph you just wrote.
I will put it right here.
Oh,
It will go right here.
okay.
We have our introduction to text. We've got our roadmap. Then we need to, go back and find some information. And then this would go right here.
Not French.
Huh?
Said we're not French.
Ah! Good callback. Yeah, French would do it first.
I'm gonna be French.
Okay.
What if I did with the thesis first? How would you grade yes?
Fail.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like a huge deal, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Would you put me on a French grading scale?
No, I would recommend. I would do it this way. Yeah.
Like,
Any other
reading
questions?
Your thesis first is a good book.
French were wrong, the girl was wrong.
No. I mean, historically speaking, it hasn't worked out great for them. So, do you guys have other questions? Not related to France. We can talk about it later. It's just I don't know if this is the time or place. All right, we'll turn on the light. Oh, one more thing I want to remind you guys. The primary reason I brought this in today, if you recall, and I think it's at the bottom still. Yeah, like everything we ended up doing came from our original draft, right? The problem was none of that was our argument. You guys can fall into this trap. All of you can. So it's important at some stage in your process, read what you have and kind of say to yourself, is that me or is that directly from the film, right? And if it's the second one, which happens, you got work to do. But it's you don't have nothing, okay? In our case, we had two, I'm gonna actually say three, but we had two very specific arguments from the film that we could then go find a moment in the film that talks about it, and then we can analyze. Right? So if you find yourself in this boat, you're not screwed by any measure. Okay. What time we get out here? 10:45, is that right?
Yeah.
Sweet. About 10 minutes, give or take. I'll tell you when it's over. Don't look at your clock because I'm not going to be that exact. I want you to work. I want you to write something. If you want to work on your introduction now, and we just talked about it, do that. if you work on body paragraphs, whatever, I don't care. Get some kind of work done. You do that, we'll leave here a little bit early. Go for it. All right, for next time, Monday's class. I know. I like to underscore the fact that you guys don't know everything and you don't hang on to everything, but you damn sure know when we don't have class. You know that one. I don't know that.
Actually, when you said class Monday, I was like, yay, class Monday. I was like, oh crap.
Well, no, we will, as we mentioned, we will be observing labor on Monday, whatever that means. I'll be performing labor. I got a lot of yard work to do, so maybe I'll do that while my boys play behind me. Anyway, you have a rough draft due on the 7th, and that should be next Wednesday. I'm not good with dates, but that should be next Wednesday. You have a rough draft due. That's on turnitin.com. I sent you an email at the beginning of this week with information on how to sign up for turnitin.com. I've said it twice, I think, maybe 3 times now. Does anybody not know what I mean when I say turnitin.com? Okay, there's a website. You gotta go, you gotta sign up. It's usually pretty painless. In some cases, when you guys go to sign up for an account, you will already have one. I don't know why that happens to people. I don't know who's signing folks up for ghost Turnitin accounts. That's strange to me. But if that's you, if you go to log in and it says your password's incorrect, blah, 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 don't freak out. You have the email address, it's yours. Click forgot password, they'll send you a thing, you make a new password. Now it's yours. You're good. I get so many emails about that. Just do that. Anyway, once you're signed up, you can use the email I sent you. There's 2 pieces of information. There's a class ID, which is just numbers, and then there's a password, which for our class is Tristan, right? Use those, you sign up for our class, you can turn in the rough draft on Wednesday, and more importantly, you can turn in the final draft. So you want to get that done. I would do it today.
Final draft?
Just sign up for Turnitin. All right, everybody good? Sweet. I'll see you in a week. Thank you.